I knew the night was going to go south when I saw the centerpiece. It was a cornucopia, but not the kind you buy at a craft store. Tasha had spray painted genuine, organic gourds in gold metallic paint that smelled like a huffer's paradise in a decaying auto body shop. It was a perfect metaphor for her entire existence. Take something natural and functional, coat it in toxic glitter, and pretend it's high art. We're sitting at the big table in my father-in-law's dining room. The air was thick with the scent of pine candles trying to mask the underlying odor of passive aggression. I'm Cynthia. To these people, I'm just Dave's sister or the computer girl. In reality, I'm the reason their logistics software doesn't crash and burn like a drunk driver on an icy overpass. I'm the digital janitor, the architect, and the plumber. I've spent 20 years knee-deep in server muck, rerouting data packets while these people were rerouting their moral compasses to profit at all costs. My brother Dave was sitting across from me, looking like a deer caught in the headlights of a semi-truck driven by his own wife. He's the CEO in title, but Tasha, his shiny new COO, wears the pants, the skirt, and the jackboots in that relationship. My father-in-law, the founder, sat at the head of the table, chewing his turkey with the grim determination of a man realizing his legacy is being eaten by wolves he invited in. So, Cynthia, Tasha chirped. Her voice has the same frequency as a dental drill hitting a raw nerve. She swirled her Chardonnay, the condensation dripping onto the mahogany table. She didn't use a coaster. We've been reviewing the Q3 discretionary budget. Interesting numbers coming out of the IT department. I didn't look up from my mashed potatoes. We're lumpy, just like Tasha's logic usually is. Is that so? I mumbled. I took a sip of water, wishing it was straight vodka or maybe a little bit of gasoline. Yet she continued, her eyes scanning the room to make sure the board members who were coincidentally invited to this family dinner were listening. Lots of line items for external technical training. Seminars, certifications, that sort of thing. I cut a piece of turkey. Was dry enough to use as insulation in an attic. Technology changes, Tasha. You have to keep up or the system rots. It's like changing the oil in a car. You don't do it, the engine seizes. Right? She smiled, a predator showing its veneers. But usually you change the oil on the car you actually drive, not a phantom vehicle. Look, before I get into how I mentally dismantled this woman like a stripped screw, do me a solid. If you're enjoying the smell of burning bridges and corporate sabotage, smash that subscribe button and hit the like. It fuels the rage engine and keeps the stories coming. 95% of you act like lurkers in a dark server room, come into the light. Okay, back to the carnage. The table went quiet. The only sound was the grandfather clock in the hall, ticking away the seconds of my patience. I put my fork down. The metal clinked against the china, sounding like a gavel. What are you implying, Tasha? I asked, looking her dead in the eye. Her eyes were empty, just blue contact lenses floating in a sea of ambition. I'm not implying anything, sweetie, she said, leaning forward. Her perfume hit me, something floral and expensive, smelling like a funeral home in the Hamptons. I'm stating, we audited the receipts. You've spent $40,000 this year on courses that have no syllabus, no accreditation, and seem to be hosted on servers that don't officially exist. Dave shifted in his seat. Tasha, maybe we should discuss this Monday? No, Dave, she snapped, not even looking at him. We discuss this now. This is family, right? We hold each other accountable. She turned back to me, her smile widening. It was the smile of someone who thinks they're holding a royal flush, unaware they're playing Uno. You've been siphoning company funds, Cynthia. Probably for a side hustle, or maybe just padding your retirement because you know you're obsolete. I felt a cold sensation wash over me. It wasn't fear. Fear is hot and prickly. This was the icy calm of a surgeon realizing the patient is already dead, so there's no need to rush. I looked at my father-in-law. He was staring at his plate, refusing to meet my eyes. That hurt more than Tasha's accusations. I had built his empire's digital skeleton. I had coded the marrow. He was letting this glitter-covered wrecking ball take a swing at me. Obsolete, I repeated, tasting the word. It tasted like ash. Is that the official stance of the board? The official stance, Tasha said, pulling a folded envelope from her purse, is that you're terminated, effective immediately, for cause, embezzlement, and gross misconduct. She slid the envelope across the table. It glided over the lace tablecloth and stopped right next to the gravy boat. I didn't open it. I didn't need to. I knew what it said. It was standard legal boilerplate, probably drafted by the corporate lawyer who was currently stuffing his face with stuffing at the end of the table. You think I'm stealing, I stated flatly. The numbers don't lie, Tasha shrugged. You can hand over your badge and your laptop. Security is already remotely wiping your access. I looked at my phone. Sure enough, a notification popped up. System access revoked. They were thorough. Stupid. Thorough? I stood up. My knees popped. I'm 45, and I've spent too many years sitting in cheap office chairs hunched over keyboards. I felt like a rusty hinge finally being forced open. You know, I said, my voice low and gravelly, the voice of a smoker who quit but still dreams of the burn. I always told Dad that the architecture of this company was fragile, that it needed constant, specialized care, like a premature baby or a nuclear reactor. Save the drama, Tasha waved a hand dismissively. We have an outsourced IT firm taking over on Monday. They're half the price and twice the speed. Monday, I laughed. It was a dry, rasping sound. That's cute. I reached into my pocket and pulled out my key card. I tossed it onto the table. It landed in the cranberry sauce with a wet plop. You're firing the mechanic while the car is doing 80 on the highway, Tasha, I said. And you didn't just fire the mechanic. You fired the engine. We'll be fine, she scoffed. Go enjoy your retirement. Maybe take a knitting class. I leaned in close, my hands on the table. I could see the pores in her foundation. You have 15 minutes, I whispered. 15 minutes until what? She asked, rolling her eyes. Until your main job stops running. Until the ghost in the machine realizes its master is gone. I grabbed my purse. I didn't say goodbye to Dave. I didn't look at my father-in-law. I just walked toward the door. The air in the room was stagnant, filled with the heavy stench of betrayal and pumpkin spice. I needed a cigarette, and I don't even smoke anymore. But tonight, the air outside was going to taste like freedom and ozone. I walked out the front door into the crisp November air. It was cold, the kind of cold that snaps your nostrils shut. I took a deep breath. Behind me, the house looked warm and inviting. Norman Rockwell painting concealing a shark tank. I checked my watch. 14 minutes and counting. The courses Tasha mocked, they weren't knitting classes, they were continuity pings. Dead man switches. Every day, I manually authenticated a specific handshake protocol between our legacy servers and the cloud backups. It was a failsafe I built 10 years ago when we had a ransomware scare. If I didn't input the code, system assumed the network was compromised or the admin was dead. And when the system assumes the admin is dead, it doesn't just pause, it locks down. It goes into a digital bunker and welds the door shut. I walk to my truck, an old F-150 that has more rust than paint but runs like a dream because I take care of what matters. I started the engine. The rumble of the V8 was the only honest sound I'd heard all night. I didn't drive away immediately. I sat there idling, watching the dining room window. I wanted to see the moment the lights flickered in Tasha's eyes. I wanted to see the moment the first phone call came in, because in the logistics world, the data never sleeps. Trucks are moving, ships are docking, planes are landing, and right now they all needed instructions. Instructions that were about to disappear into the ether. The clock on my dashboard flipped a minute. 30 minutes left. I reached into the glove box and pulled out a pack of Marlboros I keep for emergencies. I haven't touched one in 3 years. My doctor says my lungs look like I've been inhaling coal dust, which isn't far from the truth considering the ventilation in our server room. But tonight was an emergency. Tonight was a funeral, not for me, but for the company I built with my own sweat and code. I lit the cigarette. The smoke filled the cab, acrid and comforting. I cracked the window. Happy Thanksgiving, family, I whispered to the rearview mirror. The first domino was about to fall. And unlike Tasha, I wasn't wearing glitter. I was wearing steel-toed boots and I was ready to kick the rubble. The first puff of that stale Marlboro hit my lungs like a reunion with a toxic ex-lover, harsh, regretful, but undeniably grounding. I sat there in the driveway, the engine of my truck purring a low, guttural growl that vibrated through the seat and into my spine. It was the only vibration of stability I had left. Inside the house, I could see silhouettes moving against the amber glow of the dining room windows. Tasha was probably toasting her victory, raising that crystal glass filled with oaky Chardonnay and hubris. My brother was likely shrinking into his chair, an invertebrate in a polo shirt, hoping the conflict had evaporated with my exit. They thought the problem had left the building. They didn't realize the building was built on a foundation of my making, and I had just pulled the cornerstone. 12 minutes. I rested my arm on the windowsill, ash flickering into the wind. Let me explain what Tasha called training courses. In the logistics industry, data is perishable. A shipping manifest is valid for a specific window. A routing code is alive only as long as the truck is moving. If the data stops flowing, the physical world grinds to a halt. It's not like a website going down where you just get a 404 error. When our system stops, literal tons of freight stop moving. The courses were actually server leases for a shadow redundancy system, a ghost protocol. I built it because the company's main architecture, the one my father-in-law paid millions for in the 90s, was a patchwork of digital duct tape and prayers. It was unstable, so I built a bypass heart. A secondary system that took the load whenever the main legacy beast started to wheeze. It required manual daily authentication. My authentication, it was a keep alive signal. Without that signal, which I usually sent via a secure handshake from my laptop around dessert time, the ghost protocol assumes a catastrophic breach. It assumes a hostile takeover. It assumes the captain is dead, and its response is to sever the connection to protect the core data. It creates an air gap, a digital moat filled with crocodiles. 10 minutes. I saw a figure move to the window. It was Dave. He peered out into the darkness. He couldn't see me. I was parked just beyond the reach of the motion sensor floodlights. He looked worried. Good. He should be. He just watched his wife execute his sister and didn't even lift a finger. He chose the path of least resistance, not realizing that path led directly off a cliff. My phone buzzed. I ignored it, then it buzzed again and again. A steady rhythm of panic. It wasn't them yet, it was the automated alerts. Alert, handshake missed, retrying in 30 seconds. Alert, secondary node unresponsive. Alert, admin override required. I flipped the phone face down on the passenger seat. The screen glow lit up the cab periodically like a strobe light in a slow-motion horror movie. 7 minutes. House was still calm. They were probably serving pie now. Pumpkin, pecan. Tasha probably bought them from a high-end bakery and claimed she baked them herself. That was her style, outsourcing the labor, claiming the credit. It worked for pies. It didn't work for Tier 1 logistics grids. I took another drag, the cherry of the cigarette glowing bright orange. I thought about the first time I fixed a major crash for this family. It was Christmas Eve, 2005. Entire routing database corrupted. I missed my son's first nativity play to sit in a freezing server room, manually rebuilding SQL tables until my fingers were numb. My father-in-law gave me a $500 bonus and a pat on the back. Tasha wasn't around then. She was probably still in a sorority, hazing pledges and learning how to destroy lives with a smile. 5 minutes. The change happened subtly at first. I saw the dining room light flicker. Not a power outage, our house systems were separate. But I saw movement, frantic movement. Then the first call came through to the house landline. I knew it was the landline because the kitchen light snapped on, and Tasha's mother, who had been lurking in the kitchen like a vulture waiting for scraps, picked up the wall phone. She listened for a second, then dropped the receiver like it was hot. She rushed into the dining room. 3 minutes. The ghost protocol was initiating the lockdown. Right now across the country, in warehouses from Sacramento to Newark, warehouse managers were staring at tablets that had just gone black. Forklift drivers were scanning barcodes that returned invalid ID. Truckers were checking their GPS routing only to find the destination field blank. Dispatchers would be trying to log in. They'd get the spinning wheel of death. Then they'd call IT. But IT was me. And my access was revoked, so they'd call the emergency line, which rang to the COO's cell phone. Tasha's phone. 1 minute. I saw Tasha stand up abruptly in the dining room. She was looking at her clutch purse. She pulled her phone out. She stared at it, confused. She tapped the screen. Then she tapped it harder. She put it to her ear. Her face went from annoyed hostess to confused tourist in 3 seconds. She was shouting now. I couldn't hear the words, but I saw the body language. The jagged, sharp movements of someone realizing control is slipping away. She handed the phone to Dave. Dave looked at it like it was a live grenade. 0. The lights in the house didn't go out, but the energy shifted instantly. The illusion of the holiday was shattered. The operational reality of the business had just crashed through the front door. My phone buzzed one last time. Critical failure, security lockdown initiated. All ports closed. Encryption key rotated. The system had protected itself. It had wrapped itself in a cocoon of 256-bit encryption that only one private key could unlock. And that key was on a USB drive on my keychain, currently dangling from the ignition of a 2004 Ford F-150. I put the truck in gear. I didn't turn on my headlights yet. I just let it roll slowly down the driveway, the gravel crunching under my tires like the bones of their quarterly projections. I wasn't just leaving a job. I was leaving a crime scene where the victim was their arrogance and the weapon was their own stupidity. As I pulled onto the main road, I turned on the radio, classic rock. Won't Get Fooled Again by The Who. A bit cliché? Maybe, but clichés become clichés because they're true. I drove toward the highway. I had nowhere specific to go. Maybe a motel. Maybe just drive until the gas ran out. But for the first time in 20 years, I wasn't on call. Behind me, the digital lights of the company were going out, one by one, and the darkness was beautiful. The Motel 6 was about 20 miles out of town, nestled between a truck stop that smelled of diesel and despair and a Waffle House that had survived 3 health code violations this year alone. It was perfect. It was the kind of place where people went to disappear or to cook meth, and right now I felt a spiritual kinship with both demographics. I checked in under the name Ellen Ripley. The kid at the counter, a pimply teenager with a neck tattoo that said no regrets, irony is dead, folks, didn't even blink. He handed me a plastic key card that was sticky for reasons I refused to contemplate. Room 114, ground floor, view of the dumpster, luxury. I threw my bag on the bed. The bedspread was a kaleidoscope of floral patterns designed to hide stains. I sat on the edge of the mattress, the springs groaning in protest. My phone was vibrating so hard on the nightstand it was slowly walking itself toward the edge, like a lemming seeking the abyss. I picked it up. 37 missed calls, 15 from Dave, 12 from Tasha, 5 from my father-in-law, 5 from unknown number, probably the board members or the frantic warehouse managers. I didn't unlock it, I just watched the names flash. It was like watching a slot machine where the jackpot was schadenfreude. My stomach growled. I hadn't eaten any of the dry turkey. I opened the Uber Eats app. I needed comfort food. I needed something greasy, salty, and completely devoid of nutritional value. I ordered a double cheeseburger, large fries, and, just to be petty to the universe, extra pickles. In the delivery instructions box, I typed, "Leave at door, do not knock." If you see a woman crying, it's tears of joy. While I waited, I cracked open my laptop. Not the company laptop, I'd left that back at the house, probably currently being dissected by Tasha like a frog in biology class. This was my personal rig, a beat-up ThinkPad running Linux. It looked like a brick and weighed as much as a small child. It could hack the Pentagon if I asked it nicely. I pulled up the public-facing tracking portal for the company, Global Logistics Solutions. The main dashboard usually showed a beautiful, flowing map of the world with little green dots representing active shipments. Right now, it looked like a Christmas tree that had been short-circuited. Red dots everywhere. Status messages reading, sync error, data mismatch, timeout. I clicked on the client portal. Error 503, service unavailable. I leaned back, lighting another cigarette. Tasha had said they had an outsourced IT firm taking over on Monday. Monday was 3 days away. In the logistics world, 3 days is an eternity. 3 days is perishable goods rotting on docks. 3 days is manufacturing lines shutting down because parts didn't arrive. 3 days is millions of dollars in penalties. But the real kicker couldn't even diagnose the problem until they got into the system. And they couldn't get into the system because the Ghost protocol had changed the locks. The system was looking for my specific biometric signature and the rolling encryption key on my USB drive. Without it, the server viewed every login attempt as a brute force attack. And what does my system do with brute force attacks? It fights back. I could see the logs on my private mirror. Tempted admin login, IP address 192.168.1.5, the house. Action, IP banned for 24 hours. Tasha was trying to log in with my old credentials, and the system just slapped her hand and locked the door harder. A knock at the door, my food, I opened it. The driver was a weary-looking guy in a hoodie. He handed me the bag. Extra pickles? He asked, eyeing me. No remorse, I replied. He nodded like he understood. Rough night? Best night of my life, I said. I took the burger back to the bed. It was greasy, soggy, and perfect. As I took a bite, my phone lit up with a text from Dave. Dave, Cynthia, please. Dad is having chest pains. Tasha is freaking out. The dashboard is gone. What did you do? Pick up. I chewed slowly. Chest pains? Please. The man had the constitution of an ox and the heart of a cash register. He was panic attacking because his net worth was evaporating. I typed a reply but didn't send it yet. I didn't do anything, Dave. I was terminated. Remember, I'm obsolete. You guys have the outsourced firm for this. Good luck. I deleted it. Silence was louder, then a new notification. This one was interesting. It wasn't a text. It was a LinkedIn notification. Tasha last name viewed your profile. She was looking for clues. She was looking for leverage. She was probably trying to find out if I really had another job. I laughed, a harsh bark of a sound. Keep looking, sweetie. You won't find the answer on my resume. I switched tabs to a hidden window on my laptop. It was a live feed from the security cameras in the server room at the main office. I had installed them years ago, ostensibly for physical security, but mostly so I could see if the cleaning crew was unplugging things to vacuum. The room was dark, lit only by the blinking red LEDs of the distressed server racks. They were screaming for help. Suddenly, the door to the server room burst open. The lights flickered on. It was Tasha, and she was with a guy I didn't recognize, probably some poor Geek Squad kid she summoned on a holiday. She was pointing at the racks, screaming. The kid looked terrified. He approached the main console. He plugged in a laptop. I watched the screen. Unauthorized connection detected on port 8080. Countermeasure activated, port flooding. The kid's laptop screen likely just filled with garbage data. He stepped back, shaking his head. Tasha threw her hands up. She kicked the server rack. I winced. Don't kick the hardware, you plastic-injected moron, I muttered. She kicked it again, that was it. She was physically assaulting my baby. I finished my burger. I wiped the grease on the bedspread. Sorry, Motel 6. It was time to turn the screw. I opened a terminal window. I had a little script prepared for this exact scenario. I called it the Danny DeVito protocol. Why? Because life is absurd, and sometimes you need a short, angry agent of chaos to set things right. I typed the command, execute DeVito flood-sh. I watched the security feed. Suddenly, the monitors in the server room, the big wall-mounted ones meant for global tracking, flickered. Instead of the red error messages, an image appeared. It was a high-resolution meme of Danny DeVito crawling out of the couch in It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, naked and sweaty. It tiled across every screen, hundreds of Danny DeVitos. Tasha stopped screaming. She stared at the wall. The Geek Squad kid pulled out his phone and took a picture. I leaned back against the headboard, lighting another cigarette. Welcome to the Thunderdome, Tasha. The beauty of a well-executed tech revolt isn't just the shutdown, it's the confusion. It's the sheer, unadulterated what the hell is happening factor. From my vantage point in room 114, smelling of stale smoke and victory, I could practically hear the capillaries bursting in Tasha's forehead. The DeVito protocol was running beautifully. Every time they tried to reboot a terminal, Danny appeared. Sometimes he was the penguin. Sometimes he was the taxi dispatcher. But mostly he was just pure chaotic energy mocking their corporate sterility. My phone rang again. This time, the caller ID said Linda. Linda is Tasha's mother, a woman whose understanding of technology ends at sharing minion memes on Facebook and whose understanding of forgiveness is strictly conditional on how much you donate to her megachurch. I let it go to voicemail. Then I listened to it. Cynthia, this is Linda. We are all very worried about you. Also, Tasha is crying. She says there are little naked men on the screens. Cynthia, this is demonic. I have prayer warriors interceding right now against this virus you've put on the computer. Also, I left your casserole dish on the porch. Please fix this. God is watching. God is watching Danny DeVito, Linda, I whispered to the phone, and he's probably laughing. I turned back to my laptop. The logs were showing increased activity. They had called in the big guns. Outsourced firm must have had an emergency on-call team. Incoming connection request, admin override, source, external IP cybersec solutions. These guys were pros. They wouldn't be stopped by a simple IP ban. They were tunneling in trying to bypass the firewall. I cracked my knuckles. Okay, boys, let's dance. I wasn't just a passive observer anymore. I was the dungeon master. They were trying to locate the encryption key. They assumed it was stored on the server. Rookie mistake. In a hybrid legacy system like this, the key creates a volatile session token. It exists only in RAM. If the server reboots, the token vanishes. And I could see them preparing a hard reboot. Don't do it, I muttered, staring at the lines of code scrolling down my screen. Don't pull the plug, you idiots. If they hard rebooted the mainframe without the proper shutdown sequence, which, surprise, required my badge, the database indices would corrupt, would turn their organized warehouse data into a digital alphabet soup. On the security feed, I saw a guy in a suit, clearly the expensive consultant, motioning to the power supply. Tasha was nodding frantically. No, 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 I narrated. You're going to brick the logic board. The suit reached for the main breaker. Click. The feed from the server room went black. The remote connection on my laptop severed. Connection lost. They did it. They killed the power. I sat there in the silence of the motel room. A slow grin spread across my face. It was the smile of a mechanic watching a driver ignore the check engine light and then rev the engine to the red line. They thought a reboot would fix the glitch. What they had actually done was lobotomize the company. When that power came back on, the RAID arrays would try to rebuild. But without the index files, which were encrypted by the Ghost protocol, the drives would read as blank. Zeros. Terabytes of shipping history, client data, billing records. Gone, or rather scrambled into unrecognizable noise. My phone started blowing up again. Dave, the screens are black. Nothing is coming up. What is happening? I decided it was time to respond. Just a little nudge. I typed, you rebooted it, didn't you, Dave? Yes, the consultant said it would clear the virus. Me. It wasn't a virus, Dave. It was a lock. You just blew the door off with dynamite. You collapsed the tunnel. Dave, fix IT, name your price. Me. My price was my salary, my benefits, and basic respect. You canceled that contract. I blocked his number. I went to the mini-fridge and pulled out a tiny bottle of vodka I'd bought from the vending machine. Classy, I know. I cracked it open. This was the point of no return. The database was corrupt. The only way to restore it was from the backups. And where were the backups? Well, that's where things get funny. Tasha had accused me of spending money on phantom courses. Those funds were actually paying for cold storage. Deep glacier storage on a secure cloud server in Switzerland. The backups existed. They were safe. They were pristine. But the billing account was in my name. The credentials were in my head. And the auto pay was linked to the corporate card Tasha had just canceled. You have 50 minutes, I had told them. Now they had nothing. I checked my email. My personal Gmail. A notification from the cloud provider. Payment declined. Zurich server 04. Account suspended. Data retention grace period 48 hours. The clock had reset. They had 48 hours before the backups were wiped to free up space. And they didn't even know the backups existed. I pulled up the divorce Pinterest board Tasha had mentioned in the prompt. Wait, no, that was my life after the company folder. I had been planning this exit for years, just not for tonight. I had a draft email in there. Subject, consulting agreement. I opened it. Rate $500/hour. Retainer $50,000. Conditions, Tasha resigns. I hovered over the send button. Not yet, I said. Let them simmer. I walked to the window and looked at the dumpster. A raccoon was rummaging through the trash. It looked at me with glowing eyes. You finding what you need, buddy? I asked. It hissed. Same, I said. Same. Tomorrow, the real pain would start. The suppliers would start calling. The drivers would start abandoning loads. The lawsuits would begin drafting themselves. I went back to bed, kicked off my boots, and turned on the TV. Reruns of Golden Girls. Blanche Devereaux was on screen. I treat my body like a temple, she said. And Tasha treats her servers like a porta potty, I replied. I fell asleep to the sound of Rose Nyland's stupidity, which felt comfortably familiar after spending the evening with my in-laws. Part 5. The deepening crisis, sriracha and the collagen, morning, in a Motel 6 hits different. The light filtering through the polyester curtains has a distinct shade of regret yellow, but I didn't feel regret. I felt the stiff, sore sensation of vindication. I woke up to a phone that was functionally a brick. The battery had died overnight from the sheer volume of incoming desperation. I plugged it in and watched it boot up. 74 voicemails, 150 plus texts, emails, too many to count. The top email was from the automated system I had set up years ago. Subject, escrow release conditions met. This was the dead man's switch I mentioned. If I didn't log in for 12 hours, the system sent an automated email to our top 5 clients. It didn't say the company is screwing you. It was far more professional and damaging. It said, notice of administrative change. The primary technical contact, Cynthia, is no longer with Global Logistics. Please direct all security and routing inquiries to Tasha last name. Note, current encryption protocols may be deprecated. It was a professional warning that translated to, the person who knows the passwords is gone. Good luck with your millions of dollars of cargo. I showered. The water pressure was pathetic, basically a weeping showerhead. As I scrubbed off the motel grime, I thought about the sriracha incident. The prompt asked for sriracha in the collagen. I'm not a monster who attacks people's faces physically, but I am a monster who attacks their vanity. 2 weeks ago, Tasha had ordered a custom, $3,000 espresso machine for her office. It's for client meetings, she said. She never had client meetings. She just liked the frother. Before I left yesterday, during the 50-minute countdown, I hadn't just smoked a cigarette. I had stopped by the break room. I had filled the water reservoir of her precious machine with a mixture of vinegar and red dye hash 40. When she tried to make her morning latte amidst the crisis, she wouldn't get coffee. She'd get a cup of hot, red acid. Petty? Yes. Satisfying? I imagined her face puckering like a prolapsed lemon. Extremely. I got dressed in yesterday's clothes, smelling like smoke and burger grease. I knew signature sent and checked the news. Local business news had a ticker, logistics snarl at regional hub, global logistics solutions reporting technical difficulties. Difficulties, I snorted. That's like saying the Titanic had a moisture problem. My phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize. I answered, this is Cynthia. Cynthia, this is Pastor Mike from Linda's church. I rolled my eyes so hard I saw my own brain stem. Pastor Mike, what do I owe the displeasure? Sister Cynthia, Linda and Tasha came to me this morning. They are in great distress. They say you have stolen the keys to the kingdom, that you are holding the family ransom. They fired me, Pastor. I didn't steal anything. I took my keys home. If you fire the janitor, you don't get to keep his mop. They say you are hurting the family. Tasha is beside herself. She says you are jealous of her success. Success? I laughed. Pastor, Tasha's idea of success is marrying my brother and taking credit for work she can't spell. Let me ask you something. Did Linda tell you about the jacket? The jacket? My father's Vietnam jacket, the one he left to me. The one Tasha accidentally donated to Goodwill 3 months ago because it smelled like old people? Silence on the line. Yeah, well, I found it on TikTok. Her personal trainer, that guy Chad from the CrossFit gym, was wearing it in a video. Caption, vintage drip courtesy of my client. Hashtag blessed. I wasn't aware, the pastor stammered. There's a lot you aren't aware of, Pastor, like the fact that Tasha isn't at a yoga retreat on Tuesdays. She's at the Motel 6 off I-75, room 204. I know because I tracked the company EZ Pass tag on her car, or I used to, before they fired me. Cynthia, these are serious accusations. They aren't accusations if I have the GPS logs. I tell Linda to pray for Tasha's marriage, not my server access. I hung up. That felt better than the burger. I opened the laptop again. The data retention grace period on the cloud backups was down to 40 hours. I decided to check the company Slack. My account was deactivated, but I had a ghost user script that scraped public channels. Channel, #general-employee1, is anyone else's computer just showing a picture of Danny DeVito eating a ham. Employee 2, I can't print shipping labels. Drivers are screaming in the lot. Employee 3, Tasha is in her office screaming at the espresso machine. It looks like blood everywhere. Did the machine bleed? I cackled. The vinegar dye mix, it worked. Employee 4, I heard the consultant say the hard drives are blank, like totally wiped. The panic was setting in. The employees knew. And when the employees know, the ship sinks fast. I got an email on my personal account. Dave, personal email subject, please. Sin, dad is in the hospital. Stress-induced angina. He's okay, but he's scared. Tasha is falling apart. She admitted she doesn't know the passwords. We can't restore the data. The consultants say it's encrypted with a key that doesn't exist on the network. Is it true about the backups? Please, name your terms, just come back. Dave, I stared at the screen. Dad in the hospital. That stung. The old man was an enabler, but he was still family. But Tasha, falling apart? She wasn't falling apart. She was molting, shedding her fake skin because the heat was too high. I typed a reply. Dave, I'm sorry about Dad, truly, but I can't come back. The bridge is burned. However, I can offer a consulting service. Attached is a contract. It requires a wet signature from the CEO, you, and the COO, her. And it requires a wire transfer of $100,000 to the account listed. Once the funds clear, I will provide the decryption key for the cloud backups. You have 38 hours before the cloud provider wipes the data permanently. Tick-tock. Cynthia, I hit send. I needed coffee. Real coffee, not motel swill. I drove the truck to a diner a few towns over, a place called Penny's where the waitresses called Yuhan and the pancakes were the size of hubcaps. I sat in a booth in the back, nursing a black coffee and checking my tablet. Wire transfer hadn't come through yet. They were stalling, probably trying to find a lawyer who could threaten me into submission. Good luck. My contract was bulletproof. I wasn't an employee anymore. I was a hostile third-party vendor holding the only life raft. A text came through from an unknown number. Can I sit? I looked up. Walking through the diner door was Stan. Stan was the warehouse manager, a guy with forearms like hams and a heart of gold. He had worked together for 15 years. He was one of the few people who knew that the magic on the tablets came from my sleepless nights. He slid into the booth opposite me. He looked tired. You look like shit, Sin, he said affectionately. You smell like a loading dock, Stan, I shot back. He signaled the waitress for coffee. It's a slaughterhouse over there, he said, keeping his voice low. Trucks are backed up to the highway. Drivers are abandoning loads because they aren't getting dispatch orders. The perishable goods, the seafood shipment for the Kroger account, it's rotting on the dock in 60-degree heat. That's $1 million loss, I noted, dipping a spoon into my coffee. 1.2 Stan corrected. Tasha is blaming you, telling everyone you planted a bomb in the code. I didn't plant a bomb. I just took the safety pin with me when I left. Stan sighed. I know, I told them. I told Dave. Cynthia is the only one who knows how the spaghetti code works. He knows. He's whipped Sin. Tasha has him convinced that she can fix it with management synergy or whatever. Synergy doesn't decrypt AES 256 encryption, Stan. So is it true? He asked. Did you steal the money? I pulled up a spreadsheet on my tablet and spun it around to him. Look at this. External technical training. That's the line item she flagged. Stan squinted. Yeah. Look at the vendor code. He read it. Swiss Vault Data Solutions. It's storage, Stan. Off-site, immutable backups. I labeled it training because Tasha denied my request for a disaster recovery budget 3 years ago. She said disaster recovery was negative thinking, so I hid it in the education budget. I used that money to save their asses every single day. Stan shook his head, a mix of awe and disgust. So the money she fired you for was the money you used to save the company she's currently destroying? Bingo. God, she's dumb, Stan muttered, and evil, but mostly dumb. She's dangerous, Stan. Arrogance plus ignorance is a lethal cocktail. Stan leaned in, there's something else. The board is meeting at 2 p.m., emergency session. They're talking about liquidation. If they can't get the data back, they're going to sell the assets for scrap to pay off the debts. My heart sank, not for Tasha, but for Stan. For the drivers, for the 200 employees who would lose their jobs because my sister-in-law wanted to play CEO. They won't liquidate, I said. Not if I can help it. You gonna help them? Stan looked surprised. I'm going to help the company, I corrected, not Tasha. Tasha is the infection. The company is the host. I need to cure the host. My phone buzzed. Bank alert. Wire transfer received. Plus $100,000 and 0 cents they paid. But the signature on the contract? I opened the PDF they sent back. Dave had signed, but Tasha hadn't. In her place, there was a signature I hadn't seen in years. Robert, last name, my father-in-law, he had signed it from his hospital bed. He had overridden Tasha. Stan, I said, standing up and throwing a 20 on the table. Finish your coffee. We're going to war. You going back to the office? No, I smiled, a shark-like grin. I'm going to the competitor. And I'm taking you with me. Apex Logistics was everything my family's company wasn't. Their building was glass and steel, not beige stucco. Their servers were in a climate-controlled fortress, not a converted closet next to the break room. And their CEO, a woman named Alina, wore suits that looked like they could cut glass, not Tasha's fast-fashion blazers. I walked in with Stan flanking me like a bodyguard. We looked out of place, me in my flannel and boots, him in his work polo, but the receptionist didn't stop us. I had called ahead. Alina met us in a conference room that overlooked the city. Cynthia, she said, shaking my hand firmly. I've heard a lot about you, usually in the form of my ops managers complaining that they can't beat your routing times. You won't have that problem anymore, I said, sitting down. The person handling those routes is currently trying to figure out why Danny DeVito is on every screen in her office. Alina laughed. It was a genuine, throaty laugh. I heard about that. The industry is small. Word travels fast. Tasha finally pushed you out, she tried. She succeeded in freeing me. I slid a flash drive across the marble table. What's this? Alina asked. This, I said, is my proprietary routing algorithm. The one I built. The one my former employer never bothered to copyright because they listed it as admin maintenance rather than intellectual property. Legally, it's mine. Alina raised an eyebrow. She plugged it into her laptop. She scrolled through the code, her eyes widened. This is predictive modeling based on weather patterns and traffic history. This is years ahead of what we're using. It is, I agreed, and it comes with a package deal. I pointed to Stan. This is Stan. He knows every loading dock on the East Coast. He brings the drivers. I bring the brain. And what about your family's company? Alina asked, leaning back. If I hire you and you implement this, you crush them. Totally. They paid me for decryption key, I said coldly. I sent it to them 10 minutes ago. They have their data back. They can operate. But they're running on a legacy engine with a driver who doesn't know how to shift gears. They'll survive the week. Won't survive the quarter. Alina looked at me. She saw the rage, the exhaustion, and the competence. Salary, she asked, triple what I was making, full benefits, and a signing bonus that covers the cost of? Let's call it emotional damages. Done, Alina said. She didn't even blink. I turned to Stan. You in? Stan grinned. Does this place have a coffee machine that doesn't bleed? We have a barista in the lobby, Alina said. I'm in. As we shook hands, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Tasha. The files are back, but the system is slow. It's lagging. What did you do? I didn't reply. I knew why it was slow. I had restored the data, but I had removed the ghost protocol, the optimization layer. They were running on raw, unoptimized SQL queries now. It was like driving a Ferrari in first gear. It would work, but it would be loud, hot, and slow. I looked at Alina. One more thing. I want a corner office. Facing south. Why south? That's where my old office is. I want to watch. The collapse of a narcissist is a noisy event. It's not a silent implosion. It's a shrieking, clawing descent. 3 days later, I was sitting in my new office at Apex, yes, facing south, watching the chaos unfold via a group chat Stan had kept active with the warehouse guys at the old place. Stan's spy network. Warehouse Guy 1. Tasha is crying in the loading bay. Actually crying. Warehouse Guy 2. The board members are here. They look like they want to execute someone. Warehouse Guy 1. I heard the training budget thing backfired hard. The auditor confirmed Cynthia saved them $40K a year in server fees. But the real fireworks were happening on Facebook. Remember the Bible-thumping mom, Linda? Well, I decided to return her call, but not directly. I had found the AP a fair partner, the CrossFit trainer, Chad. Chad wasn't just wearing my dad's jacket. Chad had an OnlyFans page where he counseled lonely housewives. And guess who was a top tipper? User Blessed Mama T80, Tasha. I didn't hack anything illegal. I just connected the dots that were publicly available if you knew where to look. I printed the screenshots, the tips, the comments. Love the glutes, Chad, puts Dave to shame, and I mailed them. Anonymously, not to Tasha. The prayer warrior chain email list at Linda's church. The fallout was biblical. According to my brother Dave, who finally called me sounding sober and broken, Linda had stormed the office during the board meeting. She wasn't there to defend her daughter this time. She was there to cast out the spirit of lust, in front of the investors. It was a circus, Sin, Dave whispered on the phone. Mom was hitting Chad with her purse. Tasha was screaming. The investors, they walked out, pulled the funding, and Dad, I asked, looking out the window at the distant skyline. Dad fired her, Dave said, his voice cracked. He came in from the hospital in a wheelchair. He rolled into the boardroom, looked at Tasha, and said, "Get out of my building." And you, Dave, I asked. Where were you? I stood by Dad, he said weakly. You stood by the winner, I corrected. You're a weather vane, Dave. You point whichever way the wind blows. Can you come back now that she's gone? No, Dave. I'm the wind now, and I'm blowing in a different direction. I hung up. The board had dissolved Tasha's position. They were restructuring, but the damage was done. The reputation was shredded. The clients, the ones I had nurtured for years, were already calling Alina at Apex. We heard Cynthia is with you now, they'd say. We want to move our account. It wasn't stealing. It was gravity. 6 months later, Global Logistics Solutions is still operating, but barely. They're a regional carrier now, handling scrap metal and waste management. Fitting. Dave is running it, looking 10 years older. My father-in-law retired for real this time, moving to Florida to stare at the ocean and wonder where his empire went. And Tasha? Oh, this is the best part. She's selling essential oils. Boss babe energy never dies, it just changes pyramid schemes. I saw her on Instagram yesterday. She was shilling purification blends to her followers. She looked tired, her lips looked deflated. Apparently, after the sriracha incident with the espresso machine, she developed a weird sensitivity to acidic foods. Or maybe it was just the stress of being exposed as a fraud. Either way, she's shilling oils to Chad's new mistress now. The circle of life is disgusting, isn't it? As for me, I'm sitting in my corner office at Apex. It's late. The cleaners are vacuuming the hall. I have a glass of expensive bourbon on my desk. No more Marlboros, I switched to nicotine gum. My lungs are clearing up slowly. I have one monitor dedicated to the Apex global map. It's beautiful, green lights everywhere, flowing like water. The other monitor, it's a looped video. Danny DeVito eating an egg. Asthma, it soothes me. It reminds me that chaos is always waiting, just beneath the surface, waiting for bad admin to forget the password. I took a sip of the bourbon. They called me a mechanic. They called me a janitor. They were right. I cleaned up the trash. I opened my drawer and pulled out the old key card from the family business. I had kept it as a souvenir. I tossed it into the trash can. Cobe, system purge complete, I whispered. I turned off the lights and walked out. The hum of the servers hummed behind me, a choir singing the song of the competent. We're all healed. Final note to Reddit, don't mess with the people who know where your data lives. We don't just hold the keys, we built the locks. Stay toxic, friends. Big thanks for watching, you sneaky seniors. Subscribe to keep the coffee pot brewing revenge. Your ex-colleagues won't know what hit him.